Walls of water taller than skyscrapers, waves that circle the planet, numbers so massive they stop making sense. We hear about tsunamis on the news, watch the footage, see the devastation, but which ones actually made history? Which waves rewrote coastlines and killed more people than entire wars? You're about to find out. 7 tsunamis. 7 moments when the ocean turned monster. Some triggered by earthquakes that cracked the seafloor like glass. Others from volcanoes that exploded with the force of nuclear bombs. One from a landslide that sent a wave so tall it climbed higher than the Empire State Building. These aren't myths. These aren't exaggerations. Every number you're about to hear is real. Every death toll documented. Every wave height measured. From Indonesia to Alaska, from Japan to Portugal, from Chile to the deep Pacific, we're counting down the 7 biggest tsunamis ever recorded. And biggest doesn't just mean tallest, it means deadliest, most destructive, most terrifying. The kind that changed how we understand the ocean itself. If you value documented tsunami and disaster history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. Also, this script is researched and factual. Using sources from the NOAA National Centers for Environmental Information's Global Historical Tsunami Database, published in March 2024, which contains confirmed data on over 1,200 tsunamis between 1610 BC and 2017. And peer-reviewed research from Pure and Applied Geophysics journals, December 2019 analysis of the 1674 Ambon event, verified through Dutch East Indies colonial records and modern seismic modeling. Now back to the information. Number 7, Lituya Bay, Alaska, July 9th, 1958, 7:32 p.m. local time. The tallest wave in recorded history, not the deadliest, not even close, but the absolute tallest. A fishing boat captain named Howard Ulrich and his 7-year-old son were anchored in Lituya Bay that evening. Beautiful spot. Narrow fjord carved by glaciers, mountains on both sides, water so calm you could see stars reflected. Then at 7:17 p.m., a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit 13 miles away. The Fairweather Fault ripped open. 30.6 million cubic meters of rock and ice broke loose from the north wall, 3,000 feet up the mountainside. The entire face of the slope let go. 90 million tons of granite and glacial debris plummeted into the bay in seconds. What happened next defied physics. The landslide hit the water with such force it displaced the entire volume of the narrow inlet. A wave formed. Not a normal wave. A mega tsunami. The wall of water shot straight up the opposite mountainside. When researchers measured the trimline later, the height carved into the rock and stripped of vegetation, they recorded 524 meters, 1,720 feet. Taller than the Willis Tower in Chicago, higher than the Empire State Building's roof, the wave scoured everything down to bare rock. Trees that had stood for centuries vanished. Soil gone, just naked stone. The wave then rushed back into the bay as a bore. 3 fishing boats were anchored inside. 2 vanished. The Badger and the Sunmore. 4 people drowned. Howard Ulrich's boat, the Edry, rode over the wave. His anchor chain snapped like thread. The boat lifted 80 feet, surfed the back of the wave, then crashed down in churning water. They survived, but 2 others weren't as lucky. Bill and Vivian Swanson on the Badger disappeared. Orville and Mickey Wagner on the Sunmore were never found. The wave radiated out of Lituya Bay and hit the Gulf of Alaska, diminishing rapidly. By the time it reached the open ocean, it was barely measurable, 5 deaths total. The smallest death toll on this list, but the height holds the record. The Lituya Bay megatsunami of 1958 remains the tallest wave ever documented. The trimline is still visible today, a scar across the mountain that shows exactly how high the ocean can climb when the Earth breaks in the right way. The Alaska Department of Natural Resources survey confirmed the 524-meter run-up in October 1958, using aerial photography and ground measurements. That record stood for 67 years until the Tracy Arm landslide in August 2025 generated a 470 to 500-meter run-up in southeast Alaska. Close, but Lituya still holds the crown. Number 6, the Arica earthquake and tsunami. August 13th, 1868, 4:45 p.m. local time. Peru-Chile border. Magnitude 8.5 to 9.3, depending on which study you read. Modern analysis settles around 8.8. The Nazca Plate thrust under the South American Plate, offshore. Deep, violent. The shaking hit the city of Arica at 21:30 UTC. Arica was part of Peru then. It's Chile now. The quake lasted between 3 and 6 minutes. Buildings that survived centuries of smaller tremors collapsed. Stone churches crumbled. Adobe homes turned to dust. Wooden structures splintered. But the earthquake was just the opening act. Survivors ran to the waterfront. Standard disaster response. Get away from falling buildings. Get to open ground. The docks seemed safe. They watched the sea. 35 minutes of silence. Then someone noticed the water pulling back. The harbor drained. The seafloor appeared. Mud, shipwrecks, fish flopping. Cargo that had been underwater for decades now exposed to air. People walked out onto the revealed seabed, some to collect fish, others just stunned by the sight. Then the first wave arrived, 52 minutes after the earthquake. 12 meters high, 39 feet, a vertical wall of water traveling faster than a horse could gallop. Eyewitnesses said people on horseback had to ride full speed uphill to escape. Some made it, most didn't. The wave crashed into the waterfront, obliterated the docks, and swept inland. 3 minutes later, another roar from the ocean, the second wave, 73 minutes after the quake, 16 meters, 52 feet. This one traveled farther. Houses 2 kilometers inland were hit. Then the third, smaller but still deadly. The tsunami demolished Arica, Tacna, Moquegua, Molendo, Ilo, Iquique, Tarata, and Arequipa. Almost complete destruction across southern Peru and northern Chile. 25,000 people dead. Maybe more? Records from that era are incomplete. The tsunami didn't stop at South America. It radiated across the Pacific. Hawaii recorded waves 9 meters high, wharves destroyed, houses swept away, 15 hours after the earthquake. The waves hit New Zealand's Chatham Islands. 3 waves, over 6 meters tall, 20 people washed out to sea, 1 death on the mainland, a Maori village erased. The U.S. gunboat Water A was anchored in Arica's harbor. The tsunami picked it up and carried it 800 meters inland, 430 yards from the ocean. It ended up in the middle of farmland. The ship survived. Photos from 1868 show it sitting impossibly far from water. The Peruvian corvette America traveled the same route. The U.S. storeship Fredonia was smashed to pieces. The most disturbing detail came from eyewitness accounts compiled by the Chilean government. Bodies were found with broken limbs, crushed torsos. The force of the water and debris didn't just drown people, it pulverized them. Fishing fleets at sea felt nothing. The wave passed under their boats as a 15-inch swell in deep water. They returned to ports that no longer existed. The Arica tsunami traveled across the entire Pacific basin. It was recorded in Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and as far as California, where the San Francisco Chronicle reported a 9.5-foot wave on June 16, 1868. The economic damage in modern terms exceeds $2 billion adjusted for inflation, but the 25,000 deaths make it the 6th deadliest tsunami in recorded history. The 1868 event created a seismic gap. The fault segment didn't fully rupture again until 2014, when the Iquique earthquake hit magnitude 8.2. Seismologists predicted it. They were right. The 2001 forecast, published in the Journal of Geophysical Research, said a magnitude 8.6 event would strike the northern Chile seismic gap by 2126, off by a decade, but correct about the location. Number 5, the Krakatoa eruption tsunami. August 27th, 1883, 10:02 a.m. Greenwich, meantime, Sunda Strait, between Java and Sumatra, Indonesia. The Krakatoa volcano had been grumbling for months. Steamship captains reported ash clouds, explosions, sulfur, pumice floating in massive rafts. Then on August 26th, the eruptions intensified, 3 major blasts. The 4th came the next morning, August 27th, 10:02 GMT. The northern 2/3 of the island exploded. 25 cubic kilometers of rock ejected into the stratosphere. The sound traveled 3,110 miles. Heard in Perth, Western Australia. Heard on Rodriguez Island near Mauritius, 4,000 to 800 kilometers away. The loudest sound in recorded history. The explosion created a pressure wave that circled Earth 3 times. Barometers detected it 5 days later. The volcanic column shot 50 miles into the sky. Ash fell across 300,000 square miles. Day turned to night for 2.5 days, but the explosion was only part of the disaster. When the volcano collapsed, the unsupported rock fell into the empty magma chamber. The caldera dropped below sea level. Several cubic miles of ocean rushed into the void, then rebounded. The first tsunami wave formed from the pyroclastic flows, superheated ash and gas hitting the ocean at 700 miles per hour. Water flashed to steam. The explosion created more waves. The collapse created the largest. 4 separate tsunami waves radiated from Krakatoa. The biggest reached 41 meters in Banten province, Indonesia, 135 feet. The wave destroyed 165 settlements along the coasts of Java and Sumatra. Villages ceased to exist, every building gone, every tree stripped, every person drowned or crushed. 36,417 people died, 34,000 from the tsunamis. Only 2,000 from the volcanic eruption itself. The waves hit so fast that survivors reported seeing 3 villages on the northern coast collapse simultaneously. Buildings crumbled from the earthquake, then the tsunami struck before anyone could run. The Sunda Strait was littered with bodies. Corpses floated on rafts of pumice across the Indian Ocean for months. Ships as far as South Africa reported seeing human remains. The tsunami reached Sri Lanka. 1 person killed there. It affected coastlines 1,700 miles away. The volcanic ash created another effect. Global temperatures dropped 0.5 degrees Celsius. The ash acted as a solar radiation filter. Temperatures didn't return to normal until 1888, 5 years. The Krakatoa eruption is one of the most documented volcanic disasters in history. The Royal Society in Britain compiled reports from around the world. Captain W.J.L. Wharton used tsunami arrival times to calculate ocean depths. His estimates were remarkably accurate. The 1988 Royal Society report runs to 494 pages. It includes eyewitness accounts, tide gauge records, and telegraph communications. The detail is extraordinary. A German botanist named Georg Eberhard Rumphius wasn't there in 1883, but his descendants were. His account of the 1674 Ambon tsunami would later become crucial for understanding megatsunami mechanics. Krakatoa changed tsunami science. Before 1883, people didn't fully understand how volcanic collapses generated waves. The Royal Society's investigation established the connection between pyroclastic flows entering water and tsunami generation. The data collected after Krakatoa informed every volcanic tsunami study that followed. The volcano rebuilt itself. By 1927, a new cone emerged. Anak Krakatau, child of Krakatoa. It's been erupting ever since. In December 2018, the western flank of Anak Krakatau collapsed during an eruption. A landslide entered the Sunda Strait. The resulting tsunami killed 437 people in Indonesia. Smaller than the 1883 event, but still deadly. The pattern repeats. Krakatoa remains one of the most dangerous volcanic systems on Earth. The 1883 tsunami killed more people than most wars of that era. 36,000 dead in a single day. It ranks as the 5th deadliest tsunami in recorded history. Number 4, the Great Lisbon Earthquake and Tsunami. November 1st, 1755, 9:40 a.m. local time, All Saints' Day, Lisbon, Portugal, magnitude 8.5 to 9.0. The epicenter was 320 kilometers southwest of Lisbon in the Atlantic Ocean. The fault rupture occurred along the Azores-Gibraltar Transform Fault. A 1992 seismic reflection survey found a 50-kilometer-long thrust fault with vertical displacement exceeding 1 kilometer. That's probably what slipped. The earthquake hit during morning mass. Every church in Lisbon was packed. Candles lit for the holy day. Flowers decorating altars. The first shock lasted 3.5 minutes. Buildings swayed. Stone churches couldn't handle the lateral movement. Roofs collapsed onto worshippers. Thousands died instantly, crushed under masonry. The second shock was stronger. It lasted another 3.5 minutes. Fissures, 5 meters wide, opened in city streets, 15 feet. Survivors ran outside. The open docks seemed safest, away from buildings, away from falling debris. About 40,000 people gathered at the waterfront. They watched the Tagus River. The water drained. The river bottom appeared. Shipwrecks loaded with colonial treasure lay exposed, gold, silver, cargo from Brazil and Africa. People raced into the mud to claim the riches. Then someone noticed the horizon. 45 minutes after the earthquake, the tsunami arrived. 9 meters high. The wave funneled up the Tagus estuary. It hit the low-lying areas of Baisha and Belem. An eyewitness account reads, "The water arrived so fast that several people on horseback were forced to gallop as fast as possible to higher ground for fear of being carried away. Most didn't make it. The tsunami swept inland 250 meters. Hundreds drowned. 2 more waves followed within 3 hours. Each one smaller, but still deadly. The death toll climbed. 30,000 to 40,000 in Lisbon alone. Another 10,000 in Morocco. Estimates for Portugal, Spain, and Morocco combined range from 12,000 to 100,000 depending on the source." Economic historian Alvaro Pereira's 2009 study in the Journal of Economic History put the most reliable figure between 30,000 and 40,000 dead in Lisbon, with total deaths across all affected regions around 70,000. The tsunami didn't just hit Lisbon, it traveled. Waves reached Cadiz, Spain at 20 meters high, 65 feet. Martinique in the Caribbean recorded waves 4 meters above mean sea level. The tsunami crossed the Atlantic in 10 hours. Algiers reported damage. Ireland felt waves. The Netherlands recorded sea level changes. It was a transatlantic event, but the earthquake itself caused another disaster. The candles in the churches. Remember All Saints' Day. Every building had open flames. When the churches collapsed, the candles ignited dried flowers and wooden decorations. Fires started across Lisbon. With buildings damaged and streets cracked, firefighters couldn't respond. The fires spread. Within hours, Lisbon was an inferno. The firestorm burned for 6 days. 85% of Lisbon's buildings destroyed. The Royal Ribera Palace gone. The 70,000-volume Royal Library incinerated. Paintings by Titian, Rubens, and Correggio burned. Historical records from Vasco da Gama's explorations lost forever. The Portuguese government responded immediately. King Joseph and Prime Minister Marquis of Pombal ordered the army into the city. Gallows went up at high points. Looters were executed publicly. More than 30 people hanged. Bodies from the tsunami were loaded onto barges and buried at sea beyond the Tagus mouth. Against church wishes. But plague was a concern. The city had to be cleared. Reconstruction took a year just to remove debris. Manuel de Maya, chief engineer, presented rebuilding plans on December 4th, 1755. 1 month after the earthquake, and the new Lisbon would be ordered. Wide avenues, geometric streets, modern urban planning. The Pombaline cage was invented. A wooden framework inside stone buildings designed to flex during earthquakes. It worked. The 1755 Lisbon earthquake changed European philosophy. Voltaire wrote about it. Poem on the Lisbon disaster. It questioned divine providence. If God is good, why destroy a city on a holy day? The Enlightenment grappled with the event. It also changed seismology. The Portuguese government sent questionnaires to every parish. What did you feel? When did it happen? How many died? The first systematic earthquake survey. The data collected in 1755 still informs modern research. The Lisbon tsunami was the 4th deadliest in recorded history. 70,000 dead. A capital city obliterated. An empire shaken. And it happened because a fault 320 kilometers offshore decided to slip on All Saints' Day. If you're still watching, you're about to hear about the 3 deadliest tsunamis ever recorded. Combined death toll over 400,000. Numbers so large they become abstract. But these weren't statistics. These were real people, real families, real communities erased in minutes. Subscribe if this kind of documented historical research matters to you. We're pulling from sources like the peer-reviewed Geosphere Journal's June 2017 analysis of the Lisbon earthquake and Portuguese tsunami literacy, which used surviving colonial records and modern sediment core samples to verify wave heights and inundation distances, and the American Meteorological Society's January 2013 comparative study of the Lisbon earthquake and Superstorm Sandy, which analyzed long-term socioeconomic impacts spanning 2 centuries. Back to the top 3. Number 3, the Meiji Sanriku tsunami, June 15th, 1896, 7:32 p.m. local time, Sanriku Coast, northern Japan, Iwate Prefecture. The villages were celebrating a Shinto holiday. Soldiers had just returned from the First Sino-Japanese War. Families gathered. Prayers were offered. Then, at 7:32, a small earthquake, magnitude 8.5. The epicenter was 166 kilometers offshore, 103 miles west of the Japan Trench. The shaking was weak, barely felt on shore. Dishes rattled. Nothing more. People kept celebrating. The earthquake was a tsunami earthquake, a specific type where slow rupture on the seafloor generates massive waves with minimal ground shaking. The fault slipped for several minutes. Underwater, silent, deadly. 35 minutes later, the first wave hit. No warning. People were in their homes, on the streets, at the docks. Fishing boats were at sea. The wave struck the Sanriku coast at 8:07 p.m. Height, 38.2 meters, 125 feet. It was a wall, dark, fast, roaring. Eyewitnesses who survived said it sounded like thunder. The wave obliterated coastal villages. Entire communities vanished. The second wave arrived 3 minutes later, slightly smaller but still massive. The tsunami struck during high tide. The combination amplified the destruction. Water reached heights that would remain records until 2011. 22,000 people died. Some sources say 26,360. Others say 27,000. The exact count is unclear because many rural fishing villages kept poor records. 9,000 homes destroyed. The power of the tsunami was extraordinary. Bodies were found with broken limbs, missing arms, crushed torsos. The force didn't just drown, it shattered. The fishing fleets were 20 miles offshore when the tsunami passed. They felt nothing. A 15-inch swell in deep water, invisible. When they returned, the ports were gone, houses swept away, families dead. The fishermen had survived while everyone onshore perished. The psychological impact was crushing. The Meiji Sanriku tsunami introduced the word tsunami to global vocabulary. Before 1896, different languages used different terms: tidal wave, seismic sea wave. After June 15th, the Japanese word tsunami became standard. It means harbor wave. The event also sparked tsunami science in Japan. Researchers noticed something strange. The ground shaking was weak, but the waves were enormous. How? The investigation led to understanding tsunami earthquakes. Slow slip events on shallow fault sections that don't generate strong seismic waves but displace massive amounts of water. The tide gauge at Hanasaki recorded the waves. The period was unusually long, 40 to 60 minutes between crests. That confirmed deep ocean generation. Rapid rupture would create shorter period waves. The June 15, 1896 tsunami forced Japan to confront coastal vulnerability. But the government didn't implement preventive measures. That would take another tsunami. The 1933 Showa Sanriku earthquake hit the same region, 3,000 dead. After two catastrophic tsunamis in 37 years, Japan finally built seawalls, raised villages, created evacuation routes. But even those measures weren't enough. March 11th, 2011. The Tohoku earthquake, magnitude 9.1. The tsunami reached 40 meters in some locations, higher than 1896, 18,500 dead. The Fukushima nuclear disaster, the same coastline, the same vulnerability. The Meiji Sanriku tsunami killed 22,000 to 27,000 people. It ranks as the third deadliest tsunami in recorded history. And it happened because a fault slipped so slowly that no one felt it coming. Number 2, the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, March 11th, 2011, 2:46 p.m. local time, off the coast of Honshu, Japan's largest island, magnitude 9.1, the fourth largest earthquake ever recorded, the Eurasian Plate and Pacific Plate, a rupture zone 600 kilometers long, 18 miles deep. The fault slipped up to 50 meters in some sections. The earthquake lasted 6 minutes. The shaking was felt throughout Japan. Tokyo swayed, buildings designed for earthquakes held. Then the ocean pulled back. 40 minutes later, the tsunami arrived. The waves varied in height along the coastline. At Miyako, the wave reached 40.5 meters above sea level, 133 feet. At Onagawa, 38 meters. At Sendai Airport, the water reached the terminal. The airport flooded completely. The tsunami traveled up to 10 kilometers inland in the Sendai Plain, 6 miles. Vehicles, buildings, boats, debris formed a churning mass that pushed deeper and deeper into the landscape. 18,573 people died, most drowned, some crushed by debris. The tsunami reached the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant at 3:27 p.m. The plant was on the coast. The wave height at the plant was estimated between 13 and 15 meters. The plant's seawall was 10 meters high. The water poured over, flooded the basements, knocked out backup generators. Reactors 1, 2, and 3 lost cooling. Meltdown began. Hydrogen explosions followed. Radiation released. Evacuation orders went out. 160,000 people forced from their homes. The Fukushima disaster was a direct result of the tsunami. The earthquake didn't damage the reactors. The wave did. The 2011 tsunami caused $243 billion in damage. That's the most expensive natural disaster in history. More than Hurricane Katrina. More than the Kobe earthquake. Economic losses exceeded Japan's annual defense budget. The Japanese self-defense force mobilized 100,000 troops. Search and rescue operations lasted weeks. The debris field spread across the Pacific. A soccer ball from Japan washed up in Alaska. A Harley-Davidson motorcycle found in British Columbia. Entire fishing boats floated to Oregon. The tsunami generated by the 2011 earthquake was recorded globally. Tide gauges in California measured 3-meter waves. Chile recorded 2-meter waves. Antarctica saw sea level changes. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center issued warnings across the entire Pacific Rim. Most coastal areas evacuated. California had 1 death. A man swept out while photographing the waves, but Japan absorbed the catastrophic impact. The death toll would have been higher without tsunami preparedness. Seawalls, evacuation routes, warning systems. The Tohoku tsunami hit at 2:46 p.m. People were awake. Alert, the earthquake gave 40 minutes warning. Compare that to the overnight strikes in 1896, or the 1958 Lituya Bay event at dusk. Timing matters. Still, 18,500 dead. It's the second deadliest tsunami in recorded history. The Tohoku earthquake also revealed something troubling. The fault segment that ruptured in 2011 overlapped with the 1896 Meiji Sanriku event. But the two earthquakes slipped different parts of the fault. The shallow section ruptured in 2011, the deeper section slipped in 1896. Seismologists call this slip partitioning. It means the fault can generate multiple types of tsunamis. Shallow slip creates fast rupture and strong shaking. Deep slip creates slow rupture and tsunami earthquakes. Both are deadly. The 2011 disaster cost Japan over $200 billion and killed 18,000 people. It proved that modern engineering and warning systems can reduce but not eliminate tsunami risk. The waves still came, the water still destroyed, the people still died. Second deadliest, $243 billion in damage. And it happened in a country that spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. Number 1, the Indian Ocean. Tsunami, December 26th, 2004, 7:58 a.m. local time, Sumatra. The Sunda Trench, off the coast of northern Sumatra, Indonesia. Magnitude 9.1, the third largest earthquake ever recorded. The rupture was 1,300 kilometers long. The fault slipped for 10 minutes, the longest rupture duration ever recorded. The seafloor displaced vertically by several meters along the entire length. The amount of energy released was equivalent to 23,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs. The Indonesian coast was closest, Banda Aceh, the provincial capital of Aceh province. 20 minutes after the earthquake, the tsunami hit. Eyewitnesses described 3 waves. The first rose gently to building foundations, then the sea withdrew. Beaches appeared, coral reefs exposed. People walked out, they collected fish, they stared at shipwrecks. They had no idea. The second wave arrived minutes later, a black wall. Witnesses called it a black giant, a mountain of water. The wave was 30 meters high in some locations, 98 feet. It traveled inland at the speed of a jetliner. Cars tumbled, buildings exploded, people vanished. The third wave came with debris. Everything the first 2 waves had destroyed now weaponized. Wood, metal, vehicles, bodies. The wave at Loknga, southwest of Banda Aceh, reached 30 meters. Survivors reported 10 to 12 waves total. The sea receded between each one, then surged back. Each wave carried more debris, more bodies, more destruction. The run-up height between Loknga and Lupung on the northern tip of Sumatra reached 51 meters, 167 feet. The highest measured run-up from the 2004 tsunami, Indonesia. Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, the Maldives, Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa. The tsunami affected 17 countries. 11 countries reported deaths, 230,000 people killed. Some estimates say 275,000. The exact number will never be known. Entire villages disappeared. Tourist resorts on Thai beaches vanished. Trains in Sri Lanka were swept off tracks, killing over 1,000 passengers in a single event. The train was traveling along the southern coast. The wave hit. 8 carriages derailed. Passengers drowned inside. Bodies were found weeks later. In India, the coastal state of Tamil Nadu was devastated. Fishing villages erased. Thousands dead. The Maldives, average elevation 1.5 meters above sea level, nearly went underwater. Islands were submerged. Seawalls destroyed. In Africa, the tsunami crossed the Indian Ocean. Somalia reported 300 deaths. Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa all recorded damage. The wave had traveled 8,000 kilometers, 5,000 miles. There was no warning system in the Indian Ocean, none. The Pacific had tsunami warning infrastructure since 1960 after the Chilean tsunami, but the Indian Ocean had nothing. Seismometers detected the earthquake within minutes. Scientists knew a tsunami was possible, but there was no system to alert coastal populations. Thailand started evacuating some beaches based on visual observation. The sea pulled back. Locals who'd heard about tsunamis yelled warnings. Some people ran, others stayed to watch. Those who stayed died. In Sri Lanka, the tsunami arrived 2 hours after the earthquake. 2 hours. If a warning system had existed, tens of thousands could have evacuated. But there was no system, no sirens, no text alerts, no emergency broadcasts. The death toll reflects that. 230,000 people. The economic damage exceeded $13 billion. 1.7 million people were displaced. Refugee camps filled. Disease spread. Cholera outbreaks. Dysentery. Infrastructure destroyed. Power grids down. Water systems contaminated. The recovery took years. The 2004 tsunami changed everything. Within months, international funding poured in for an Indian Ocean tsunami warning system. The system went live in 2006. Seismometers, ocean bottom sensors, warning centers in India, Indonesia, and Australia. Communication networks, evacuation plans. The Thai government built seawalls, raised buildings, created evacuation routes. Tsunami education became mandatory in coastal schools. Indonesia implemented strict building codes in Banda Aceh. Stilts, reinforced concrete, escape routes. But the 2004 disaster also revealed something darker: tsunami tourism. Within weeks, people were flying to affected areas to see the destruction. Hotels advertised tsunami tours, guides showed ruins, bodies were still being recovered, and tourists were taking photos. The ethical questions persist. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was the deadliest in recorded history. 230,000 confirmed deaths, possibly 275,000 total, 17 countries affected, 13 billion in damage, 1.7 million displaced. And it happened on December 26th, the day after Christmas, Boxing Day. Families were on vacation, beaches were full, hotels packed. The timing amplified the death toll. The 2004 event proved that tsunamis are not just Pacific Ocean threats. Any ocean, any coast, any fault. The Indian Ocean hadn't seen a major tsunami in over a century. People assumed it couldn't happen. They were wrong. 7 tsunamis, from Alaska to Indonesia, from Chile to Japan, from Portugal to Sumatra, each one unique, each one catastrophic. Lituya Bay holds the height record, 524 meters, but only 5 deaths. Arica killed 25,000 across South America and the Pacific. Krakatoa killed 36,000 when the volcano collapsed. Lisbon killed 70,000 and changed European philosophy. Meiji Sanriku killed 27,000 from an earthquake no one felt. Tohoku cost $243 billion and caused a nuclear disaster. And the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami killed more people than all the others on this list combined. The ocean doesn't care about technology. It doesn't care about seawalls. It doesn't care about warning systems. When the seafloor moves, the water moves. When the water moves, everything in its path gets destroyed. We've improved. We've built warning systems. We've educated populations. We've engineered better buildings. But the waves still come. The question isn't if another mega tsunami will hit. It's when and where. And how many will die before the water recedes? Because the earth will keep shaking. The volcanoes will keep erupting. The landslides will keep falling. And the ocean will keep answering with walls of water that make the tallest buildings look small, a final detail that reframes everything. In 2019, researchers published findings in Pure and Applied Geophysics, analyzing sediment cores from multiple Pacific coastlines. They found evidence of prehistoric megatsunamis, waves over 100 meters tall, run-up heights exceeding 300 meters in some locations. These events occurred before recorded history, before humans built cities on coastlines. The rock record shows massive underwater landslides. A volcanic island collapses. Asteroid impacts in the ocean. Each one generating waves that make the 2004 tsunami look small. The Altanan asteroid impact 2.5 million years ago hit the southeast Pacific. The resulting tsunami was over 200 meters high when it struck South America and Antarctica. The wave traveled across the entire Pacific basin. Evidence found in Chile shows marine sediments deposited 3 kilometers inland at elevations exceeding 50 meters. That's not from wind or storm surge. That's from a wave generated by a 3-kilometer wide asteroid hitting the ocean at 70,000 kilometers per hour. We survived those events because we weren't there. No cities, no populations, no infrastructure. But the Earth hasn't changed. The processes that created prehistoric megatsunamis are still active. Volcanoes still grow, fault zones still accumulate stress, landslides still wait, and the ocean still covers 70% of the planet. So when you hear about a tsunami, remember these 7. Remember that the water doesn't negotiate. It doesn't warn. It just comes. And when it does, the only thing that matters is whether you're high enough, fast enough, and lucky enough to survive.